All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 183, and tonight my guest is Noah MACTUTUS. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's a young dude. He's got quite a bit going on, and he's learning everything that you need to learn in order to run your own, I guess you could say, self-publishing comic business. He's doing like everything. So that's what I'm going to talk to him about tonight. Learning how to do everything in comics. It's going to be a very comprehensive show. We're talking about the ins and outs of all of that. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention there's 2 days left to get the Granite Beast resin figure. It's a 7-inch figure. The Granite Beast in King Cryptid number 2. We'll see him again in King Cryptid number 6. Big guy. The figures are on a scale of 1 to 30. So it's 1 to 30 ratio. We got King Cryptid at 3 inches. We got Behemoth at 4 inches. Granite Beast is at 7 inches. He's a big dude. 2 days left to get this, especially if you want the glow-in-the-dark. We're not doing the glow-in-the-dark figures after the pre-order period. So make sure you go and get yours. The link is right there. And also, of course, we've got Comic Book Radio logo stickers. I'm signing the brim of the hats. For Comic Book Radio listeners, watchers, for you guys only, these are $3. Shipping is free worldwide. You can go check out the description of the show. It'll take you to my PayPal link. Send me your address. The $3. I don't care where you are, US, not US. Shipping's free. And I'll send you out a sticker. We do have these on the Alterna site, but they won't be signed. And shipping won't be free. They'll be like that. But for you guys, it'll be signed, and shipping will be free. Big thanks to those of you that have already gotten some. Much appreciated. That's just one way to support the channel if you do enjoy what goes on here. All right. So without you know what? Not without further ado, I got a little bit more of a do. I got to say hello to you guys. Noah, give me one more minute. Mark, what's up, Mark? He says Noah is king of the chat. And he left this comment today at 2:52. 2:52 Eastern. You got here nice and early. Well, Mark, I hope you watch later on. Or if you're watching now. Hello. Derek, what's up, Derek? Hope you're doing good, brother. Good to see you. We got Spicer McLeroy in the house as well. What's up, Spicer? Says, have a great weekend and have a great show, brother Pete. You man, Spicer keeps sending me this amazing King Cryptid 3D game design, animation. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to classify it. It's incredible. I'm going to have him on the show in a few weeks to talk about that and more. But if you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, you can go to me on Twitter at Peter Cimetti and just scroll down a bit. You'll find like a retweet or something like that of Spicer. I forget Spicer's handle right off the top of my head at this moment. Spicer, if you want to put it in the chat, go for it. It's mind-blowing. I can't get over it. It's incredible. So, Spicer, thank you, brother. Citizen Ronan, what's up, Citizen? Hope you're doing good. We got Gen X here. What's up, Gen X? Said, blessed Good Friday to everyone. Absolutely. Absolutely. Golden Tree TV. How's it going, Golden Tree? Hope you're doing well. We got Dr. Mask here, too. How's it going, Doc? All right. No more ado. Without further ado, let's give a big Comic Book Radio welcome to Noah. What's up, Noah?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. It feels good to be back here. You know, it's like coming back to your hometown.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Was my show the when I used to do open mics? Was that the first one you were ever on?
Not the first, but like the second or third. So
Wow.
yeah. It'll be fun to talk with you for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a whole hour.
Yeah,
I'm very curious to see where you're at, what you've been up to,
yeah,
what you've learned. It's been, man, I don't know what it's been. Maybe what 2 years at
yeah,
least
yeah,
since I've talked to you last.
yeah. I'd say 2 years. 2 years.
Wow, man, time flies.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't feel like 2 years. It's like the past 4 years to me, since I started coming on the show and everything. It feels like, I don't know, maybe 1 year. It's like, man, it's crazy.
It really is. Hey, Derek's calling out your taste in music.
Uh, listen, listen. Some
What's he?
people, it's because I like the Beatles a lot, and he doesn't like the Beatles. It's.
Oh, okay.
But as you know, I'm a big fan of Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, which you also
Yeah,
like. So
absolutely.
yeah,
It's not so bad. You like Billy Joel too, right? I'm a
yeah,
Billy
yeah,
Joel fan.
yeah.
I like all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
the Beatles is like, yeah, everyone gets into the Beatles at some point or another.
Yeah, I used to hate on them just because I didn't listen to them. And then I listened to them like when I was, I don't know, 2 years ago. Around the time when I was on your show. And then they blew my mind. I was like, whoa. And then now I don't listen to them.
That's kind of how it goes for a lot of people, you
Yeah.
know? And then you get into everything else, and that's about it. But yeah, I love Dean Martin, love Frank Sinatra, and absolutely, man. All right, good to see you, good to talk to you. I want to know, what have you been up to lately? What's going on with Noah?
Well, I'm working away on Mavericks Volume 2. So I'm trying to get that done. I got it pretty much drawn and stuff. I'm working on knocking out the colors. While also managing, college and stuff, because I'm in my second semester of my first year and stuff. So all those projects and stuff, but still working away at volume 2.
Gotcha. How long is that? How long you've been doing that? How long has that been that you've been working on Volume 2?
Ooh, how long? Let's see. The first one came out early 2020. About 3 years. About 3 years from when I started writing it to where I am now.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a full plate, man.
Yeah, yeah.
How's it been going for you in terms of time management?
First semester was kind of hard. Now I'm kind of figuring it out. Uh, I was actually working on pages in between classes on campus, right? Because I'd bring my computer, I'd have an hour or like 30 minutes. So I'd make sure that I would scan the page before I left for class, get to class, get out of class, go to some building, like the cafeteria, right? Open up the computer, and I'd start flatting for like 30 pages, 30 minutes, quick pack it up, go to the next class, come home, work on homework, and then if there was time, do some more coloring and stuff. So,
What are you going to school for? What are you majoring in?
so I'm majoring in digital arts, and then I'm gonna try to minor in graphic design.
Oh, cool. I went to school for graphic design. I got a BFA in graphic design.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know who
Make
else
sure
went for graphic design?
take business courses too. Make sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about it, but I wasn't sure if then it becomes too complicated, because then it's like, I know business courses are harder than art courses. I was like,
You're gonna need it. You're gonna
You know.
regret it when you don't.
yeah, yeah. But you know who else went for graphic design?
Who?
McFarlane. He went for graphic design. So
Very nice. Yeah. Well,
we're in
It-
good company.
comes in handy.
Yeah, yeah. You know.
So comic book wise for you, when did you get started? Because you got started, you already doing this kind of stuff, making your own comics and whatnot before you had even come on my open mic show a couple of years back.
Yeah, yeah. So I started really when I was around. Okay, I think I started to get into comic books, the ideas of comic books and stuff, when I was 10 or 11, somewhere around there. but I started to really try and make them. Well, I actually started to make them when I was 14. Like I started printing them and everything like that. But before that, I'd get on the phone with my friends and we'd just, come up with characters, and I'd do like quick little doodles, Like one guy was called like Viper Man, okay? Okay, and so we'd have him, and then we'd come up with like another one. But none of them stuck until I was like 13 or 14, and then I created Mavericks. So, but the story of how I got into comics is kind of funny. So,
No. Okay.
I got comics from like my older cousin. One was like the first issue of Batman Hush, and then there was like some small Spider-Man trades for like little kids. It wasn't like a real trade. I forgot. I gave them away, but they were like smaller editions, almost like manga size.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I had those when I was
have a
little.
couple
So
of those.
I knew comic books existed. I didn't know how to read them, so I never read them. I just kind of looked at them a little bit. Okay, because none of my friends talked about comics. My dad wasn't a comic guy. Okay, so I just had them and they just collected dust. But I'm a big fan of like movies and stuff and stories and writing. So I got into writing stories. I guess I was like 8 or whatever, and I would write short stories and print them out and stuff. I actually still have one. I might show it off sometime. It was like a Terminator ripoff, right? But then I started getting into like the Marvel movies and stuff, and around this same time, there was this. So I'm homeschooled, but I'd go to like this homeschool group on like a Friday where everybody would meet up and stuff. And during lunch, there was this older kid who my two best friends would go and hang out with, and he would make comics, and he'd put all of his friends in the comic book. But I wasn't friends with him, right? So I wouldn't go over and hang out with him. So I'd stay, and then my friends would leave me and go over to the guy who made the comic books. So I was like, well, I'll just try making better comic books than his. That was one angle. Then at the same time...
How old were you when you had that thought?
Let's see, 2015, 2016, 10. I was 10. 10 or 11. Right? So that was part of it. Then the other part was I was writing these stories, but I mean, writing's kind of boring. There's no pictures to a 10-year-old, so. And then picture books, well, that's for sissies and little babies. Movies are too expensive. You can't make those. So you might as well make comic books.
Yeah.
So those were the two things that got me into comic books. Jealousy and then lack of budget, So from there, I started to, put my head down. And I used to doodle and stuff. And there was some guy that, an older guy I knew from my church, and he used to make cartoons and stuff. So I used to just do kind of, not even comic strips, but kind of that cartoony style. So I already had an interest in drawing. So I was like, okay, I'll try and do like this comic book stuff,
Man, so it just kind of took off from there?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing it didn't last too long in terms of trying to outcompete the other 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And you kind of... When did you start to decide you wanted to make your own stories and it didn't really matter what that other guy was doing?
I guess when he stopped.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I outlasted him. I defeated him. Okay?
There you go.
Because he was like 2 or 3 years older than me, right? So he got out of it pretty quick. But I kept doing it because it was fun. And I have an itch to create stuff. Even with music. I can't listen to music without wanting to make my own music. I can't watch movies without going, yeah, I'm gonna make a movie one day. It's like, and I've gone through phases where I've tried to make music. I'm like, this is too hard. I put it down. I tried just listening to it, but then it's like, I don't know, it lasts for a couple of months, and I'm like, I gotta try to write a song. I was like, I just gotta try and do it. So I just have this itch where I gotta create something. So, and then I guess so I was always making my own stories, but to kind of answer that question, I guess what really got me, not so much to keep writing stories, but to like try and make it into a thing, and not try to work for Marvel or DC
Yeah.
was number one, I didn't know how to do it. I tried looking online, didn't make any sense on how to submit to them and stuff. And then also, I'm 13. Marvel ain't gonna hire me. Now, why should I waste years until I'm 18 and not make any comics? Why? Now, sure, I could make my own stuff, right, just for fun and doodle, but I could potentially make money at it. So I could potentially make money while practicing, right? So that's why I started to, print them and sell them to people at church or my friends. Hey, like even people, listen, I would hustle people, okay? Because there was like some older guys, they don't care about comics, okay? They didn't care about comics, but I'd go and I'd talk to them. I'm like, oh yeah, I make comics. Yeah, I'm like, oh, it's only like, $3. It's $3. It's only $3, my comic. You want it? You want to buy it? And eventually I'd get them to buy it, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll get it. I was like, yes. It's like they don't care about comics. They haven't looked at it since, but I got the sale, So,
That's great.
yeah.
Are you still doing your tagline, help a kid out, or whatever that was?
No, I need to bring it back. Oh, that was great. Because that was an accident. And then I think you pointed it out. I was like, okay, I'm going to grab that, Because that was another thing. Part of the reason why I started the crowdfund for Mavericks Volume 2 so soon was because I was going to be turning 18. And even though when you're 18, you're still like a kid, people don't look at you the same. So I was like, okay, I got to get this out while I'm 17 with as much time as possible to promote it so that, I can say, oh, I'm a kid, help a kid out, pack the buck, right? So like I launched in like January because my birthday's in February, right? So I was like, okay, I get at least one good month of selling with the help a kid out,
Genius.
But yeah. And then also part of the thing with making my own book was McFarlane, and this came
Yeah, how
later.
is he an inspiration for you?
How okay. So when I first got into comics, didn't like his stuff. Too aggressive, right? I'm 10. I didn't watch really violent movies. I'd watch Rambo. Rambo 2 was as violent as it would get. Maybe Rambo 3, around there. That was it. Okay? So I didn't watch a lot of violent stuff, or a lot of I didn't watch any horror movies, none of that stuff. So a lot of the 90s stuff was just too aggressive for me at that time. So I was actually into Jack Kirby. And actually, I'm a big fan of Captain America, okay? So my first comics that I bought were digital, versions of the first Captain America issue.
Oh, okay.
So I was going way back to Jack Kirby and stuff like that, and I was a fan of that before I was a fan of McFarlane. Now, obviously back then, Stan Lee, he was a big deal, right? With Jack Kirby and all of them. So, me being a student of the internet, that was how I learned. I came across the comic book greats with Stan Lee. Now, the one that I first saw was the one with Rob Liefeld. I watched that, and I loved his stuff. Okay, I was like, oh, this is so cool, because he draws Die Hard. In 10 minutes, it looked like he didn't have any underdrawing. I'm like, man, how did he do this, right? I'm 12 or something at this point. So I became a fan of Rob Liefeld, right? So then I, watched some interviews with him. But then I forget which one I saw. It might have been the Overkill one, which is Liefeld and McFarlane. Or it might have been the one that's on YouTube that's called, How to Create a Comic Book. I think it was that one. I remember watching that one, or one of those, on my couch in my living room. It was the summer. And, I watched it because of Rob Liefeld, and then I watched the other one because it said How to Create a Comic Book. I'm here trying to figure it out. I don't know anything. I'm thinking there has to be a set process, a step-by-step guide, right? So I was searching for the answer, right? So How to Create a Comic Book with Stan Lee. Boom, I'll watch that. So I'm there for Rob Liefeld. And along comes this guy with this funny accent, okay? He kind of talks funny. He has kind of a weird name, in my opinion. As a kid, I thought I had a weird name. And, I still somewhat have it, but when I was younger,
McFarlane.
Yeah, I
Weird
never
name.
heard of that name before. I'm like, McFarlane?
Okay.
That's like a weird name. And also Todd. I don't know anybody named Todd. I mean, my dad's best friend from when he was a kid was named Todd. I don't know anybody named Noah. I've never met a MACTUTUS. So I'm like, so I kind of like that. And then also, he kind of talked funny. And as a kid, especially, I talked kind of funny. I had a hard time talking. So I related to him. But then he had that energy, right? He had that charisma. I was like, who is this guy? Right? And then he's like, and like the one with like Rob Liefeld when it's how to create a comic book. He's like, oh, but you take the seat. I'm gonna be lazy on this one. I'm like, who is this guy? I mean, because he just had that attitude. He had the bravado. So then I started watching it, and then he used to do these videos on Facebook where it'd be like, how to draw a hand, okay? And he's like, oh, the fingers are peanuts, and you overlap them, and if you've ever heard him draw, he's like, oh man, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna put slobber, oh, I'm gonna put extra detail, blam, blammo. He's like making sound effects, he's having fun. So that captivated me, right? I was like, look at this, now he's saying how to draw. He's saying how to draw Spider-Man, he's saying how to draw Thor. He's saying how to ink a comic book page. So that's what got me. And I'm like, this guy's different, So then I got obsessed with him for years. Okay, he was my number one guy.
Watch out, Todd.
Listen. I wouldn't look at other people's stuff. Okay, like I was a fan of Jim Lee and stuff, but McFarlane was my guy. I wouldn't even tolerate the notion that anybody was better than McFarlane. I was like, no, he's the best. And part of it is his attitude, right? So, like I said, I'd watch like all these videos and stuff. So I'd watch interviews. And his tenacity, his hustle, that really, motivated me a lot. So I was like, you know what? I like this guy. And this was later on after I started doing my after I started printing the books and everything. And it was around the time of Spawn 300. Okay, so he's doing this big press thing. I'm hyped through the roof. Spawn 300. Greg Capullo's coming back. This is insane. Because Greg Capullo, he said he was never drawing Spawn again. He's like, he was fervent on that. He's like, I'm done. I did my run. I'm never drawing it again. Right? So McFarlane's doing this big press tour. But he made a mistake, okay? He went on these stages and he'd give this whole speech. And he's like, and people are saying if I'm ever going to stop doing Spawn, and I'm not going to, okay? I'm going to keep doing this until I die, okay? Now, if you do the math, it takes 25 years to get 300 issues, right? And now I'm going to have the record, and I don't plan on stopping for the longest, so I'm going to have the record of the longest running comic. Because here's the thing, somebody who's 20 is going to have to decide that they're going to sit down and do this one comic book for the next 50 years every month in order to beat my record. And they're not going to do that. They're just going to say, let the old man have the record. So I took that as a challenge. Okay? I'm like, okay, I'm 15. So I've got 5 extra years than what he's estimating.
Todd McFarlane's out there. He's not aware he's calling you out.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do my book until, it's done. So that kind of helped motivate me to keep doing it, But yeah, McFarlane's the best, I don't look at his stuff as much anymore because I've looked at it so much. It's kind of like what happened with the Beatles. I listen to them every day, all day. I'm tired of them, So I kind of don't look at McFarlane anymore, but he's still my hero,
Well, you'll come back. You'll come back to him.
Yeah.
He still has that energy and that drive, though. That's why it drives me nuts when I'll have people over the years that I've published and they get something out and a year goes by and they just don't care anymore. They don't care to talk about what they're working on or what they're going to be working on or anything. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes the issue will just have come out and they're not really talking about that one or the future one. And it's just radio silence. It's completely strange to me.
Yeah.
And it's always the mindset, especially when we were with Diamond, it was the mindset of, oh, well, that came out already, and, whoever got it is going to get it, and that's it, and that's all it'll ever be. And I've never understood that. You know, if you now it's different if you tell me, look, I really just don't care about that character and that story anymore. I kind of got it out of my system and I'm done.
Hmm.
But if the excuse is thinking that it reached everyone it could possibly reach, so that's why I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I feel like everyone already knows about it, is going to know about it, and that's it. That's always driven me a little crazy. I
Those
don't
are the
understand
worst
that.
types of people. You know, it's like you gotta take your shot, man. You can't just. I don't like the people who are like they slightly try and then they're like, oh well, I tried and oh I don't have like the talent right off the bat, so I just don't have the talent and that I don't have that capability. It's like no man, get in there and and use everything that you have in your control. Completely exhaust that. Give it your best with everything you can control. And if there's stuff that's out of your control that stops you at that point, well, there's nothing you can do. But at least you gave it that shot. And
Yeah.
I guess some people they just like think like, oh well, I can't do that. I don't have that problem. It's like
Yeah, like, is the
I
bar set so low that all it is, well, I made it, and that's it. That's the dream. I just lived the dream. I made the book.
yeah
Because sometimes it's been like that. I've had experiences with people where it'll be in previews, it'll be in the comic shop, or readers will even be, they have it. And it just feels like none of that really matters anymore because the dream was to make it. And now
yeah.
once it's made and done, it's like that's it. And they stop.
I guess it's just like a personality thing, or
It must be.
or what you want. Because I guess if the people are, longer, like if they're older, then I get okay. Maybe it was just a childhood dream, and they just want to be able to say that they did it. Maybe they don't have the energy, or like that much passion to keep pushing the train, But you had mentioned something about how oh well maybe they're not interested in the story or like the character anymore, And I mean I've only been doing this for 5 years, but so far it's worked. When I set out to make Mavericks, right? I didn't tie him to anything. So it doesn't matter what setting he's in. It doesn't none of that matters. It doesn't matter. I can put him in anything and I can make it work, I think you've said something about you doing that with, your character and stuff, where it's like you set it up so you have so many different things that you can possibly do with him.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, but you kind of have to have the foresight, I think, and the
Yeah, it
beginning
takes
to
a
do
while.
it.
Absolutely, it does. It takes a lot of trial and error to get
Yeah.
there. You got to get some experience under your belt to even know how to tell that kind of story and to even
Yeah.
find that character. Because I think some people, maybe they just don't find that character
Mhm.
along the way. I've known a lot of people who they become so plot obsessed. It's all about the plot,
Yeah.
over and over again. That the characters are almost, they're not even like these living, breathing characters. There's almost no development to them. Sometimes there's barely any character design. The names are usually pretty generic or worse.
Right.
And it's just about the plot and the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like movie making as opposed to like a big TV
TV show.
series
Yeah.
or or thinking of a franchise, that kind of a thing where a franchise is built around a character or characters.
Mhm.
You need plots, of course, you need story, but if that's all you really have and you don't have these great characters that you want to spend time with, why the heck would the audience want to spend time with them? It's just kind of a race to the finish, get the story done as soon as possible,
Yeah.
whether you're talking about a comic or a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So, with what you've been doing, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years? The ones that hit you the hardest?
Uh, that's such a big question. It's like
So let's
I-
start small. Give me one thing that stands out to you when I say that, where you think
I
that
mean,
you
it's
went
ki-
into it, you had no idea whatsoever, and you learned more about it, and it completely changed your frame of reference in terms of your expectations for what that thing was.
There's no set way to do it. That's the biggest thing. Because when I started out, I was trying to find the roadmap. Okay, how are you supposed to write a script? exactly how are you supposed to lay out a page? Exactly how are you supposed to, you know, like, are you supposed to write out, like the major acts in sticky notes and have them lined up? Are you supposed to just write a paragraph of the plot and break it down? I was trying to find a set thing, but as I go along, I find that how you get there doesn't really matter. It's just as long as you get there in the end, you know? Like, you don't have to have a full script. If you're a creator like me who writes and draws, okay, you could do half of it in full script and then all of a sudden write the rest in plot and just do thumbnails. It doesn't matter. If you're writing the script and all of a sudden you're getting tired of writing full script and it's not, there's no energy in it, right? Because that's the worst. When you're working on something, it's like trying to write is like just, pulling teeth. It's like agony. That's the worst, and I think the quality kind of suffers because then you're just doing it to get it done so you can be done with the agony as opposed to really enjoying the process and getting something great out of it. But so that's like the biggest thing is that, there's no set way to do it. You just gotta, get it done. Another thing is it's a lot of work doing everything yourself, especially, and it takes time, and you have to kind of be somewhat okay with it taking time.
How are you doing with that?
Oh, it's driving me nuts. It's agony. It's agony.
Impatient about it?
Yes. Because imagine, like, okay, so I heard you had to do a page a day, right? So when I was doing like the first 10 issues of Mavericks before I started crowdfunding and doing graphic novels, I was like, okay, a page a day. So that to me meant I had to pencil, ink, and color a page a day. Okay, so I would do that, and then however it was, that was how I was okay with it. But as I got older, as my artistic eye developed, as I learned more, now I start having like a level that I'm really reaching for. And now it's kind of impossible to hit that with the same time accuracy that I used to have. Now if I sit down and try and do something in a day, I'm going to hate it. Right? I'm not going to want to publish it. I'm going to publish it. I'm going to put it away. I'm never going to look at it.
Because you're rushing it, right?
Yeah. But then you get into the thing of treating it too precious. And, you got to do all the detail. Especially, this is what happened at the beginning of the book. I was like, I need to do all the detail because I see the Bartons are doing all the detail. I'm getting into Wrightson. He's doing all the detail. Richard Friend has his book with all the detail. So I'm like, okay, well... And then it's kind of like that macho, you're like, well, I can do that. They think I can't do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to show them that I can do all the detail. But then you start realizing this is taking too much time. And now you're like, well, great.
Noah's got something to prove.
Yeah. Well,
Where does that come from, Noah? Where does that come from? Has that always been there that you've got something to prove?
It's not so much... I don't know. I don't like thinking...
And not to yourself. It seems like you've got something to prove to others. That you can do this too, or you could do this better than so and so.
I mean, I don't think of I think of myself as having the potential to reach perfection. Not perfection, but like McFarlane. He has way more years of experience with me. I'm not like, oh, well, I don't have that many years of experience, so I can't hit that now. I'm like, no, come on, I can hit that. Come on, I can do it. I can do it. Right? I can do that now. I can do it in a year. I don't need 5 years like him. I can do it now. Right? It's like, I want to beat them, not in a malicious way, but just in, I don't know, maybe I'm competitive. I used to play
I would
soccer.
definitely say you're competitive.
I used to play soccer as a kid. And my dad was, my coach, and he always would teach me to hustle and to give everything, your best, everything, your all. Plus, so I'm like, I don't know. I just don't. I think of myself as having the potential to reach it. I don't think, even though I know intellectually, because my dad's even told me about it. He's like, Noah, listen, your brain isn't as developed as them. You can't see things that they can see, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yep.
It comes
Yep.
with time. But I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but maybe somehow I can get it. You know, like, I don't want to use that as an excuse and then take my foot off the gas pedal. That just makes me want to, like, say, well, I'm going to change it all, and I'm going to be the guy to do it when he's 18, when he's 19. I'm going to be that guy to hit that level,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Well, listening to you though, and it sounds like this is happening because you are starting to accrue more and more things under your belt, that you're figuring that the competition lies within, because you're looking at your stuff and you are raising your standard of what you feel you're capable of. And now you're
Yes.
starting to look at your stuff and want to outcompete it. And the thing is, you have to get stuff done in order to point to what you've done before and want to outcompete it. Instead of looking around and say, okay, I want to, compare myself to others, or I'm
Right.
going to compete with so-and-so. Even if they're not aware, I'm competing with them. Once you start competing with yourself, that's when you really start to get that growth hits off. And I think that's the point that you're getting to now, where you've got a lot of things you can look back on. And you're being able to look back on it now and go, that was good, that wasn't good, I should have done this here, I'll do this instead the other time. So now you're able to kind of go forward a bit in a wiser way.
Part of it, too, is I don't think that's avoidable, at least not at my age.
Oh, it's not
like,
avoidable.
It's like you kind of have to...
It's the only way forward.
You have to fall off the bike and scrape your knee, and then like, because with like the whole time thing, right? My dad, he's always said with grades and stuff, right? He said anybody can get an A if you have enough time. If you have forever, anybody can get an A. It's about getting an A in the set amount of time. So, if you take my approach now to doing a page to when I started this book, it's a lot different. There, I wanted to do the greatest thing I possibly could muster up. Now, I want to do the greatest thing I can do in a reasonable amount of time. And also part of it is I'm getting into the real world. I have other responsibilities, okay? I got to go to class, I got to do assignments. When I was younger, I didn't care about seeing it, like my friends really didn't care about it. I was like, I'll just sit in my room. Whereas now I'm like, I want to talk to my friends. I want to, oh, you want to go get a burger? Come on, let's get a burger. I want to. So now I'm realizing actually how hard it is to do a page a day. Because when I was younger, I was like, doing a page a day, it ain't that hard. Now, part of that was I didn't have the mental ability to see the detail. Like, I saw the detail in other people's work, but you know how it doesn't click? It's like you think you're doing that detail, but really you aren't. Your brain just can't grasp it. So I was like, what are these guys talking about? Oh, it's so hard to do a page a day. I'm like, it ain't that hard. You just sit down and do it. But part of that was I didn't have any temptations to get away from the board. I didn't have any interests outside of the board. So now, all that stuff is making me value the time that I do have to spend at the board. So I don't want to have to spend, I want to be able to get the good stuff out in a timely fashion. It's like, so, with my next book, I'm not going to let myself sit on a page for 2 weeks or a week as I'm trying to do it and try and figure it out. I'm going to give myself X amount of time, and then that's how the page gets done. And that's the advice that's been given to me. It was given to me in Volume 2, but you don't listen when you're in that mode, because you're like, no, I can beat that. Maybe that's for you, but you don't know me. I'll be able to do it. Then you find out, hey, I'm not able to do it, and I should have listened. But now you can't go back in time, so you just gotta keep going.
Yeah. Time management is a really crucial thing.
Yeah.
That's something just, regardless of whether or not you're making comics or whatever, time management, prioritizing, the hierarchy of tasks that you tackle day by day. And then there's always going to be the things that you didn't expect were going to pop up, and then they pop up, and you got to handle those right now.
Yeah.
You know,
like a big thing that I mean, volume 2, right? I kind of cringed when you asked me how long I've been working on it. Because right now, it's the bane of my
Good.
existence. Is like how long it's been, you know?
You
But like
should
part,
feel a sense of shame.
yeah, yeah. You know, because what happened was I thought I could get it out in like X amount of time. But I didn't. And then what happened was now I have to study for an SAT. So now I'm being told, put down the page and go practice, go
Yeah.
study. And then I'm studying. So then months went by where maybe I'm only working on it a little bit. You know, maybe 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Because I actually had this setting where I would have to clock how much time I did with schoolwork and how much time I did with SAT. And if I hit X amount of time, that would then unlock 15 minutes that I could work on the comic book. Right? So I used to have to track the time. So maybe I'd only have 15 minutes to work on a page. But then, once I got the SATs done, well, now your parents are telling you to go and learn how to drive. So now you have to go and do that. And then now you're 16, 17, your emotions are all over the place, you're getting overwhelmed with stuff that you normally wouldn't get overwhelmed with. You don't understand it. And now it's a lot harder to sit down and focus on the comic. So it was like this whole sandstorm of just things, one after the other, right? And then, now I'm working on the colors, but now it's been so long, right? And this might happen to you. I've been working on this story for so long. There's nothing more to think about when I'm working on it. I've thought about it all. Like, when I'm drawing or when I'm coloring, I have to be solving some problem besides, like, oh, what color am I going to use? I have to be thinking about some character interaction, some plot. But I've pretty much thought of everything that's possible to think about in Volume 2 over the 3 years. But now, I have a responsibility to get the book out, and I can't start writing the next one. So now I'm stuck in this spot where it's like, I can't really develop any new ideas. There's nothing more to think about here, but I gotta get this out before I can do that. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like I still have to write the dialogue and the captions and stuff because I'm kind of doing this like Marvel style, plot style. But the thing about that is I can't think about the dialogue while I'm coloring. I have to be reading the book. I have to be referencing other pages when I'm writing the dialogue. It's not like something that I can just toss around in my head, if that makes any sense. It's like trying to solve a complex math equation while doing something else. It's not going to happen. You have to write it down, you have to get it on paper, and then you can start working it out. So like the writing that I am able to do for the book, you know, without betraying backers by working on the next one, I'm not able to do because it's physically impossible for me to do that while I'm coloring. So I either have to stop coloring and then write that stuff, or do the other thing.
How are you breaking it down into little bites? Because you're looking at like the big huge meal in front of you and wondering how you can stuff that whole thing in your face instead of just one bite at a time, bite at a time.
Yeah.
You know.
Are
you working on that? Is that something you're still working on? Trying to figure that out, the one bite at a time?
Haven't thought about that at all.
Give it some thought.
Explain.
Give it some thought.
Explain exactly what you mean, you know?
Yeah, you want to break everything down into your pages, panels at a time, one panel at a time. What you're doing with your stories, your characters. Have them, and do you keep them all in your head, or are you writing them down somewhere that you can...
I write them down if
okay, good. Yeah, write it down, get it out.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it up here, it's going to drive you nuts. So you want to put it down, get it out of your head. When you do that, there's something that happens where you won't think about it as much anymore because you got it out of your system. So put it down on paper. It does two things for you. It does that, and it also makes it real. Yeah. It makes it real now. You've got it written down, and don't type it out. Write it down somewhere, and keep a notebook, whatever it may be, and keep writing down your ideas, your characterizations, your plots, whatever it may be. Even if it's just a sentence for a plot for the future or whatever, an idea you have for a character, whatever it is, you can reference it later. Get it out. It's the same thing with writing lists. That's a great
Yeah.
thing too. If you've got lists with tasks that you want to accomplish and whatever it may be, write that down and get to it. But get it out of your head.
Yeah.
Too many people, they keep everything in their head, and then they can't keep track of it. It's like, well, of course you can't keep track of it. It's all running around in here.
Yeah.
You need something tangible. So
You know-
that's a great way to break it down and get it out of your system too, because then you can actually deal with what you got to deal with. Your subconscious is able to solve problems for you because it's not thinking about all the things inside in terms of what you want to get done and how your stories are or what you got to do for today or a million other
Yeah.
things.
Something that I just thought of when you were talking about, writing down the notes and stuff is the biggest positive to the book taking this long is I've thought of stuff that I wouldn't have thought of with in regards to characters and setups
And that's
in this
great.
book. Different ways that I can take this character and what he did in this thing and actually involve that with another character or have another plot line or a twist. Stuff like that is what I wouldn't have thought of that if I did this book in 6 months and then went on to the next one, right? So that's like, obviously you don't want the book to take this long, but there is a positive to it that overall I think that, I've thought of stuff that I wouldn't have thought of before,
Yeah.
But something else that's kind of, I'm just going to mention it. American Discord in the chat, okay, that guy's Shelby Robertson. Now, this guy, okay, he's been helping me out a ton. Great artist, right? But
Oh, yeah.
he taught me stuff with coloring, right? And if he didn't, listen, there's a chance that if he didn't teach me the stuff that he taught me, right, I wouldn't have taken so long because I wouldn't have noticed that other level that I could go to. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's another thing that made this thing last so long, is my brain exploded with all this different stuff. Oh, this is how you crosshatch? Oh, so this is how you throw that line? This is how you decide the angle to throw that line? Oh, this is how you do the colors? Oh, so you can use a hard light layer in Photoshop and that does that effect? Oh wait, so Simon Bisley did this thing and he was influenced by this guy? Oh wait, so McFarlane was looking from the manga stuff and Appleseed, and Jim Lee was looking from Appleseed. What's Appleseed? Let me go look at Appleseed. Oh, this art, I've never heard of this artist. Who's this artist? Right? So it's like, that's something else that happened during this time period, is all of a sudden my brain just exploded, became like a sponge. Listen, I'm serious. I've written, over the course of this book, I've taken out Post-it notes, and this has changed multiple times. I'm like, okay, oh, Mark Silvestri, dude, this guy's the best. Oh, look at this stuff. I didn't know he did this stuff. This Wolverine stuff's crazy, but wait, he did new X-Men? What's this stuff? This stuff's nuts. Oh, wait, I wonder if that Batman's book gonna come out. I'm gonna take from him. I love this rendering. But then, a week later, oh, look at this. Richard Bennett on this book, on Brass, or whatever it was called. Oh, he did cool stuff like that. I want to do tech. But wait, John Romita Jr. and Daredevil Born Again did this great stuff with the buildings. I'm going to try and do it like that. So there were so many phases where I was like, I'm going to draw like this guy. No. And then 2 weeks later, no, I'm going to draw like this guy. And then, you know what? Actually, I don't, there's this other guy who does that thing even better. Oh, I'm going to do that. But wait, now that thing's not as detailed as this guy. So maybe I don't want to pull from that guy. Maybe I want to pull from this guy. It's
You're going full Liefeld. You really are.
But like, that's the thing that happened, right? Because it's like all of a sudden, because listen, I'm not kidding, man. I looked at Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and then that was it. Then I looked at McFarlane, Liefeld, Lee. I looked at Silvestri, but I was like, yeah, the darkness. That stuff's kind of creepy, right? Because I was like,
did it not occur to you to maybe branch out a bit past those guys?
No, because Todd McFarlane was the greatest, in my opinion, at that time that there ever would be. There was no to even, and I mentioned this before, I wouldn't entertain the notion that anybody would be better than McFarlane. McFarlane was my guy. If somebody's on the first stream I was on, right? Because you brought this up earlier. The first stream that I was on, they were like, "What's your favorite artist?" And I was like, McFarlane's the best. And some guy's like, oh really? Because I think Michael Turner he's my favorite. I was like, nah, he's not close to McFarlane. I was like, nah, McFarlane's the best, right? It was like, That's the thing about McFarlane's energy and everything, was it was able to captivate me so much that I became such a fan of his personality, that then I became a fan of his art, that I was a diehard fan. And it was almost like
you were in the
it was almost like I pledged
infatuation
allegiance
period.
to him. It was almost like that. I was like, no, I'm a McFarlane guy. And I'm nobody else. Nothing else, right? So no, it didn't come into my notion, right? I didn't think of looking at other guys. Maybe I look at Liefeld. Maybe I'll look at Jim Lee. But then I'm like, yeah, Jim Lee's boring compared to McFarlane. Get that guy out of here. You know? And then I'm 13, so I'm like, oh, everybody says Jim Lee's the best. He ain't the best. You guys don't know what you're talking about. He's overrated. You know? You know? So, and then, you know...
I'm sorry, the chat's killing me.
Yeah.
You guys in the chat, you're
What?
killing me. You're killing me. Noah's doing great. This is a great conversation, and I'm soaking it in. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm finding fascinating, Noah, is because of your, and I hate to bring this up, but your age.
Yeah.
There are people that are twice, 3 times as old as you that have not arrived to these conclusions yet about things.
That's the fun.
You are living multiple lifetimes in a very condensed, compressed, like you're creating a diamond.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the plan.
The
That's
coal
the plan.
that is you.
That's the plan. It's like,
You know,
I said
and usually
before.
most people, you gotta get to like 60, 70 to get that diamond. You know, you're gonna get like a diamond out of it when you're like 25 to 30. Which is fantastic. I'm so excited for you because
That's what I'm saying though about how I was like, oh, McFarlane thinks like the potential challenger is only going to start when he's 20.
But yeah,
I was
you're
like,
having realizations within a span of like a year, what most people would take like 5 to maybe 8 years.
part of that
to
I
hit
can't
that
take credit
realization.
for, though. I'm going to take this time to say it's due to people sharing information, mainly Shelby, because I mean, listen, I'd send that guy DMs in the middle
And that's
of the night. How do I draw
wonderful,
this panel?
and all
And
credit
that's-
where credit's due as far as that goes. But I will give you credit because of the fact that there are many times you can just say,
I'm
I don't
sorry.
want to hear it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing about confidence. If you don't have enough confidence, you can't learn.
Yeah.
You don't think that you deserve to. And if you have too much confidence, you don't think you need to. So you got to have the right amount of confidence.
Yeah. But I would say a lot of it's, you know, I do want to say that it's due to the environment of being online, because that's when the breakout happened. Part of it might have been, okay, my age, right, because I started to get older, so my brain developed more, so I was able to notice things. But it was also people, and this is what I'm going to try and do when I'm in that position, is to share the knowledge and have patience and not
Good.
look at a kid as being, oh,
Pay it
this
forward.
guy, get out of here. No, come on, kid. Here's how you do that. Here's how you do that. Oh, and not hiding things. Not being like, oh, you can't know about this Silvestri book. I'm gonna keep that to myself. No, instead of being, hey kid, have you seen this Silvestri book? Check this out. You know, it's like that environment of people sharing and stuff is important, and they used to have it. I think, from what I know, in the old days of Marvel and stuff, and you know, like Frank Miller learned stuff from other people in the studio and all that stuff. But then
Yeah, Neil
somewhere
Adams was
along the
big.
line, people lost interest in the craft. You know.
So what you're talking about is mentorship.
Yes.
So when you hit that mentor phase of what you're doing, you've accumulated so much knowledge and experience, you're willing to pass it on, pay it forward, while still doing what you're doing. And that's an important aspect of this. That's an important aspect of just human civilization.
Yeah, because if you don't, if like I heard somebody say like, oh, you know, all these masters are like now dying, and maybe they haven't passed it along, and now they're saying like, oh, well, the craft
The
is
secrets
actually
die
dying
with them.
before our eyes. I don't really 100% buy into that, because I'm like, yes, people, it's not that now the craft and what those guys knew is forever gone. Somebody else can learn on their own. It's just they won't be able to learn it as quickly, and then they won't be able to advance it. Whereas if you, because like, you know, if somebody sits there, they could probably figure out what you figured out maybe. But if you share that, now they'll know it earlier on, and now they can develop it further. And that's what you want to do. You want to develop this stuff. like I hear so many people saying, "Oh, let's bring it back to the '90s. Let's bring it back to the '90s," especially in this whole area. No, let's make it better than the '90s. Let's take what the '90s had,
Yeah, and
with the
build on it.
cool with the cool energy, the cool rendering, but advance it. What happened? Don't just try to hit the '90s. Don't set that as your goal. Create something that the '90s couldn't have dreamed of making. And then hopefully the next guy comes along and says, "Oh, you did that? Well, I'm gonna do something that's way better than that." Because like, why just try and hit the '90s? You gotta try and push it forward. Because guess what? The '90s guys weren't trying to draw like the '80s. Sure, they liked Art Adams. Sure, they liked John Byrne. Sure, they were trying to kind of draw like them. But they weren't copying them, were they? They weren't saying, "Let me make a book that looks like it's from the '70s. They were going, "What's hip? What's new? Oh, now I have this access to this Japanese stuff. Let me take that and put it in there." They were advancing it, but now it seems like not a lot of people want to advance it. Because like, there's the people who don't even care about quality and do whatever. Then there's people who kind of care about quality, but it seems like they're setting their goals at '90s. Like I hear that a lot. Bring back the '90s. That's why I'm talking about it. It's like, no, you got to push it forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%. And I'm the guy that's putting out comics on newsprint, and it's like we still got to find ways to make things that build upon what came before, but you got to add something still that's yours, that's unique, that maybe is innovative, or is taking all the influences that have built you up, and you're putting a little bit of you in there and adding on that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it really is, you're making a bad copy of what's come before. You're never going to get to where that was at the peak of it. And even if you did, that's the most you're ever going to be. Yeah. You're never going to push past that. But yeah, it's so important to be able to understand that, push forward, push through it.
Yeah.
And even though it might feel like you're getting outside your comfort zone, or it might be a little scary because you're going to be maybe creating in a way that feels like it's something completely new to you. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit unsure when you're doing that. You have to create. You have to do that. Otherwise, everything is just, I don't know. It just feels like it's stuck in time.
It's stale. It's
and then we end up becoming exactly the same thing that we complain about with the reboots and the retcons and the, all of that stuff. You keep doing the same thing over and over again instead of moving forward.
Yeah. And like you don't have to push, like, to push forward, like it's not like you have to push the envelope or like push the boundaries of like what's like it doesn't mean like you have to go and do all this crazy dark stuff that they never would have thought of publishing. I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm just going off that.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you have to do something that never would have been published in the 70s, right? You can keep it could be PG. It could be that stuff. You don't have to go in that direction to push it forward. You could just find a different way to present that same moral story or whatever it is, or that, because it's like it seems like everybody takes the easy way out of saying, well, I'm pushing the envelope and I'm doing blah 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 blah, which wouldn't have been considered to do before. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. It's a lot harder to stay within like those moral or whatever boundaries or stuff. Like you don't have to make it super dark. Try keeping it in that, but then find a different way to present it that pushes it. And it's like you don't have to take, like, especially with the internet. Okay, you have access to so much art, right? It's like I'm looking at stuff from like right now in my art history class from like the Baroque era, right? I'm like, man, this stuff's kind of cool. I was like, and it's like, it's inspiring. I want to take certain stuff from that and put it into like the comic books. And that's kind of what it's about. That's what the 90s guys did with the Japanese, comics, the manga. They were taking something new and putting it in with the old. And then hopefully, though, somewhere along the line, I come up with something original in my own style. And I'm not just, you know, because that's like the goal.
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah, and I think as long as you do something well enough, you keep your standards high, you keep pushing your boundaries of where you want to go with it.
Mhm.
You know, you don't make excuses for yourself, and you give yourself the all important time constraint. Because if you don't give yourself the
Yeah.
time constraint, and I stress strongly for those that are trying to develop some kind of style or some kind of confidence, give yourself that time constraint, because you will have no choice but to trust your instincts and to trust yourself with how you're creating. If you don't give yourself a time constraint, what happens is that you end up doing the forever, you're tinkering all the time.
Yeah.
You're never done, you're never finished, you never know when to stop, because it doesn't seem to matter when you stop. It's always it's a forever work in progress. So there's nothing finite, and when there's nothing finite, there's nothing to learn from, and there's nothing to grow off of, because you're not learning. So
Yeah.
give yourself that time constraint. Stick to it as closely as you can.
I'm looking around my room because I'm looking for a page that ties in with what you're saying. This happened on a lot of pages, right? I get stuck and then on a panel, so I'd work on the rest and I put it down and say, oh, I'll figure that panel out later, right? On some of this stuff, it was a year and a half or 2 years before I finally figured out what to put in that one panel, you know, because I didn't put the time constraint on it. And here's the thing that I figured out to put in that panel, it's not a masterpiece. But now I've come to the point where I'm like, okay, this thing really has to get done. Let me sit down, try and figure out what's the best possible thing I can think of, but then that's it. And it's like, listen, that's one panel on one page out of 64 pages and one book out of hopefully dozens. And this is what McFarlane says. I think it's very wise. He's like, nobody judges your career off of one drawing. They look at your whole work, right? So if most of the stuff you did was great and you had like one really bad drawing, most people are just gonna look at all the great stuff that you did, and they're not even gonna notice that one bad drawing. And that's especially true if you take it to the smaller scale of like a comic book, because they're reading the story. There's going to be dialogue probably in that panel. Most people don't even look at the art for longer than 5 seconds. You know, they just like they look at the words and they see it in the background.
Well,
and
even look at the
on.
entirety of a character.
Yeah,
right.
It's like
who's your favorite mainstream character?
Captain America.
Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Your top, off the top of your head, your favorite stories from Captain America. How many would you say that there are?
1.
Yeah. Look at how many Captain America stories there are.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Same thing with me. You know, if I say X-Men or Spider-Man or Batman or whatever it may be, I could say 5 to 10. And there's hundreds of those stories.
Yeah.
And not that, you know, they're varying degrees. Some of them are crap. Some of them are okay. Some of them are kind of forgettable but serviceable. Some of them are good. And then some of them are unbelievable, fantastic. But there's hundreds, if not more, of those stories, depending what character you're talking about. Yeah. And yet so when I'm seeing creators out there that are so hung up on, I gotta make this one the greatest thing I have ever done. It's like, okay, but will it?
2 years ago.
But will it be done? That's the thing.
Hey.
And I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to bust
out.
your chops. No,
No.
I know how far you've come.
It's a good lesson. Here's a double-page spread, which I started.
I'm gonna put you full screen here.
This was started 2 years ago. It's still not finished. Okay, because there was a couple people in the space who were doing double-page.
Is this what people are talking about in the chat? They're saying, "How is the grass coming along?"
Yes, it's a joke. It's a joke because I did this grass one Thanksgiving. And then the next Thanksgiving, I did this grass. And then I did like the trees like over the course of like a week. But then I put it down because I got tired because it was so intensive. And then I pick it up again. This is still not finished. There's still a couple buildings that I have to go in there and knock it out. But
if you say so.
Well, it's like pencil, you know. But the thing about this was, about making. You mentioned, oh, this book needs to be the greatest thing ever, but will it be, right? This was me sitting here and going, okay, I see this one guy doing a double page spread, which everybody's claiming. Oh, there's so much detail. Oh my gosh. Oh, look at all this detail. Look at that window and the building behind this one tree that's on top of a mountain that's behind a house. And there's smoke coming in front of the house. But look at that window. Look at all this detail. I've never seen any detail like this in any comic book. And then there's other guys doing all the detail. And everybody said, oh, this detail's crazy. Nobody's doing it like you. Nobody's doing this detail. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do an even more detailed thing. Of course, did I accomplish that now in hindsight? No. No, but that was how I started out to do it, right? I was like,
everything out there is a challenge to Noah, is what I'm learning.
All this cross hatching. This was like a 0.05 something.
Oh my Lord, yeah.
And I was going in there, and I was, cutting back over, and then building it up, Listen, by the time that gets colored, nobody's gonna see it. Nobody's gonna see it. I could have just come in with solid black, and it would look the same, right? But I was like, I'm gonna know that line's there, and I'm gonna outdo this guy, right? Because, how old's he? He's in his 40s? Well, now imagine if, at the time, a 16, 17-year-old outdid him. Right? Because then, if I manage to outdo him when I'm 16 or 17, just imagine how great I'll be when I'm his age. And that'll make right? So that was like
how many hours did that page, or that those 2 pages take you? If you could estimate.
If I could estimate. Okay, let's see. I worked on it probably an average of 2 hours or 3 hours a day over like 4 days in a row. I don't know. 20 hours, 30 hours, something. I don't know. Because here's the thing. I can't sit down and do this in one sitting. So I did.
Okay.
Listen, it's a joke on my YouTube channel.
Punch a clock. I'm giving you an assignment. Punch a clock. You got 5 hours to finish that page.
Oh, I could finish it in 2 if I sat down and did it. But I don't know, because I'm coloring stuff, so it's kind of a meme with my chat. So I'm thinking of coloring every single page and then finishing this as the last thing, because it's a joke. Because I like streamed it one Thanksgiving, then like the next Thanksgiving I did it again, still wasn't finished. Then it's New Year's and I'm streaming, I'm working on it, still not finished. But it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it's got to be the greatest thing. But was it? It's not done, is it? It's not done. So
I feel like that's a metaphor for something.
Yeah.
I feel like that 2-page spread is a metaphor for something going on within your life. I don't want to psychoanalyze you here. I feel like you're scared to finish it. Like it represents something. It's like a time capsule for a time that was. If you finish it, it means now that time is over. But it's good that time is over. Because time marches on.
Now you've got me wondering if you're correct about that.
Time marches on whether you are ready for it or not. So embrace it.
That's the thing. In hindsight, if I just did a simpler thing, imagine how many more double-page spreads I could have done in the past 2 years.
That's what I'm talking about.
That probably would have been better than this, And here's the thing. Nobody's going to look at this spread, okay? I was on stream with Phil Diaz, right? I'm showing this off a year or 2 ago, and he goes, wow, that's a lot of detail. And he's like, so is there going to be like a lot of captions on that page?
Don't let that page be your glory days. Don't let that page be your Al Bundy story about when you took the football and ran down and you were the hero.
Yeah. He goes, is there going to be a lot of captions on that page? I'm like, I don't think so. I think maybe 1. And he goes, oh, so people are going to look at it for 15 seconds? And it was like a knife through my chest. I was like, no, what did I do? But then, in hindsight, I'm like, I still have the work. I can still show it to somebody. And it actually paid dividends with getting me into college and as a portfolio piece and stuff like that. So it did pay off, just not in the way that I thought it would.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still worth it, you know? If I could go back in time and redo it and keep the knowledge I have now, I'd probably do that. But if
You're too young to say that. Don't
but,
say that phrase. You need at least 10 more years on
I
you
know,
to say a
but
phrase like that.
if I could go back, but here's the thing, if I could go back and redo it, but then I don't have the knowledge that I have now, then I wouldn't want to go back in time. Because that lesson that I learned, it was better that I scraped it now
exactly.
than later on, you know?
Exactly. You never would have got to where you are now without those lessons.
Yeah.
But the key now is to understand that as you move forward onto the next thing.
Yeah.
You'll get there. I have a feeling you'll get there a lot sooner than...
The funny thing is, though, I still gotta color this thing, and I'm my own flatter, right? And so I gotta go in there and get all the buildings and decide on if I want to do the windows or not. And then I gotta color it, even after I get all the line work done on it. It's like, what was I thinking? You know? But, hey, if I ever decide to do a black and white thing, I'll be hailed. Oh, look at what this idiot 16-year-old kid did. You know, maybe then, in a perfect world, there'll be some 13-year-old who goes, this 16-year-old kid thought he could do this. I'm gonna outdo him. You know, and then he learns the lesson. You know, and then I get to say, see, you shouldn't have done it, but then it'll be fun, you know?
Absolutely. Noah, I got one question for you before you wrap things up. You've done a lot in your short amount of time making comics and doing what you've been doing.
Yeah.
I know this might be a big question to you because I know how you're thinking based on this conversation.
Oh boy.
Now, there's a lot that you need to learn still.
Yes.
Can you give me three things at the most that you are actively pursuing in terms of looking to learn how to get those things done? Either 100% you don't know what these are, you're diving into it for the first time, or learning how to make them better, how to become more efficient at it. Just three things, though. Three things.
One thing that I'm learning with this project that I haven't tackled yet is pre-press. I've never had to do pre-press for any of my other books, just due to the way how I worked with the printer. With this one, I've got to do that, right? So that's going to be interesting. I remember taking notes like 3 years ago when I started this thing. I got to find them and stuff. But so that's something that I haven't started to try and learn yet, just because I'm still in production mode. But as soon as I get that stuff done, then I'm going to have to go back in and try and learn the pre-press and stuff. You know, the different ink levels and InDesign and cropping, you know, stuff like that. That's a hard question because I'm not trying to learn anything right now. I'm trying to get the book done.
Oh, you're always learning though, because even so there's things that you've been doing with the book.
Mm-hmm.
Has anything come up where you're like, I wish I knew how to do it like this, or I wish I knew how to...
Coloring. I wish I knew how to color now.
There you go.
In the beginning. Because it's going to be interesting when people look at the book. The style and the approach is kind of different. Thankfully, it works scene-wise, you know? But, well, yeah, I'm always learning, but there's not anything that I'm like, how to learn right now, because I'm like, people are waiting for the book, so I can't be actively trying to practice something. I have to, I'm in that mode where it's, okay, you sit down.
There's always things that come to you, though, where you're like,
yeah. So
I gotta learn that. I gotta get better at that. I gotta dive into it.
And the process.
And you do digital coloring, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just the process of the cut and grad and stuff like that, I'm faster at now than I was before. Also, the idea of how much detail you need to do in the colors, how much is necessary. I'm learning there's not a ton that's necessary. Like before, it was like, I thought, oh, you gotta have like a bounce light, a rim light, cool hot spotlight, right? With like 3 or 4 different highlight selections. So what I mean by that, if the highlight's on his bicep, you do one big selection, hit it with one color, go to another layer, another one that's slightly smaller, then another one, hit that one, and then finally you get the final one. Now I'm finding out you don't need to do that many. You could do 2 and it still looks great. You also don't need to do complex bounce lights along with a rim light of a second. Like, I'd have a bounce light, like a blue, right? And then I'd have a secondary light source, which I would then do like a rim light on the other side of the shoulder, right? So I'd have like orange, and I'd have blue, and it looks great, but it's not necessarily necessary. And, so...
So Shelby says, Noah, use all of Pete's advice you learned today. You also said 5 hours on the double page spread. That gives you until 2 a.m.
Yeah. So just how much you need to put in with coloring, that's what I'm learning now. And then also how not important it is. The comics. They're important, right? They matter.
Did you just say how not important that
Yes.
comics are?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to have to clarify, my friend.
Okay. Listen, that one comic book doesn't have a huge weight on your life. That one comic book is not everything. And you can kind of forget that if you're in your room all the time, and then you get television, because then there's nothing else. You forget about everything else that exists, and this one book then becomes your whole life. Becomes the whole big thing, and then you start being so precious with it, because that's the only thing you're doing, right? There's nothing else that exists. It's just that comic book, and you're in there, and then it becomes extremely precious, because, well, if that's your whole life, you don't want your life to be bad, okay? There's nobody who wants their life to be bad, so if that book's your life, you want to have a great life. You could walk down the street, everybody wants to have a fantastic life. So now you want that book to be fantastic. Now you're treating it so precious. That finger is slightly wrong in that one thing. And we were talking about this earlier. So, and then here's the thing. Even if you create a great book, right? A masterpiece, there's still more important things in other people's lives, right? You could have a fan. I'm a fan of Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. My favorite comic book ever. I think it's a masterpiece. That thing's not the most important thing in my life as a fan. So, sure, it's great. It's entertainment. You get inspired to keep carrying on. It distracts you from whatever. You get that escapism, or if you happen to write something, I mean, I haven't read a comic book like this, but if you happen to write something like Rocky, well, that inspires people to keep going, right? That's great. But as much as Rocky has inspired me, it ain't the most important thing in my life as a consumer, right? There's a lot of things that I rank higher than that. So even if you make a masterpiece that somebody loves a ton, it's not the most important thing to them unless they're crazy. And if so
What is the most important thing to you, Noah? If you could quantify that right now.
God. And then my family. That's the most important thing to me.
Now, how so? In what capacity?
It dictates everything I do in my life. Nothing else really matters. At the end of the day, those are the 2 things I care about.
How are you in service to them? What do you bring to the table to be in service to that goal, to those things that matter to you?
Well, I try to do what's right, as much as I can. I try to give my best with stuff, right? Because that brings respect to your family, right? I'm carrying my family's name, right? I'm starting to learn that, kind of. You can't be acting like an idiot, because then you bring shame to your family.
The importance of responsibility, yeah.
Yeah, you have responsibility, you have to carry yourself a certain way, then, and just in personal life, well, you gotta take care of your family. If somebody needs a drive somewhere, if they need you, well, you kind of gotta put down the comic book, don't you? You know? Oh, sorry, Dad. Couldn't help you. I had to work on my comic book. And then 10 years, Dad's dead. But hey, you have the comic book. That's not too good, is it? But you also do a good job by making them proud, by doing a good job with your comic book, and by being determined. And not giving up, and sticking at it, you know? Right? So, I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
question that you ask.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know,
yeah.
it's
It's possibly the biggest. It's the what is the meaning of your life? Not what is the meaning of life, but what is the meaning of your life? And you're gonna find, and it's a question that you will find a different answer for it at different times of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna find that there's different answers depending upon what stage you are in your life.
Sorry, I heard the chat.
Yeah, your chat is great
Dude,
tonight.
I gotta turn the chat off. Oh, okay.
But
There we
that's
go.
the thing is that. So what your answer is? It intrigues me a bit because of the fact that that's, I think, a relative core fundamental value that people have. But that's not a goal. That's not a goal. The goal isn't God, the goal isn't family, the goal isn't those things. It's to be of service to those things. And you have to understand, I don't want you to think the comic book is the most important thing. But if that or whatever else comes along in your life is a very important thing to you, and you feel like that is something that helps me be of service to others, because we all do our part in our own little way. We all have our skills, we all have our inclinations, we all have what we're good at, we all have what brings us joy and happiness. And what tends to bring us joy and happiness, for the most part, tends to bring others joy and happiness as well. So don't ever feel like what you're doing isn't important or doesn't matter or that it's not in service of. Because with you saying God is a very important thing to you, I'll say it in these terms. There's a reason that you have an inclination to do what you want to do.
Yes.
And it is because of that divinity. And that goes for whether you believe in consciousness, God, this, that, the other thing, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it. Something somewhere put that spark into you. And you are meant to pursue that. You are meant to give that your all. That is important. So I know that what you're talking about, where you have to prioritize in a given moment what's more important. But never downplay the importance of what that is. And I'm not saying that you necessarily are,
Right.
but I know that at times it's easy to say, this is just a comic. There's so many more important things in life.
That's the thing.
In
That's
a
the
given
thing.
moment, yes. But the overall, if that is the way that you can contribute to those that you care about, to the world, to what is your legacy and your impact, then it is absolutely and utterly the most important thing in your life. And I know it's a big question, especially because you've got a long road still ahead of you. So you have a lot of time to sort of figure that out. But you don't have as much time as you think to figure that kind of thing out. But the good news is that you figure it out along the way. So it could be comics right now. It could be something else. It could be something completely different 10 years from now. But whatever it is that is, whenever that comes along, it could be comics right now. That could be the thing you're like, 100% with every fiber of my being. I know dead certain this is what I'm doing with my life. This is how I am of service and of value to others and what brings me joy and worth and sense of self. Then that's wonderful. And there's a reason for that. So don't forget that. Don't put that aside. Don't put it down. Nothing ever of that sort. Just something to think about.
Yeah, just something to think about, you know. Just this, one-off comment, But, yeah, it's not that... It's because you can become too... What I was trying to say kind of was, you can become too precious with it, and which is what happened to me. In which case, you don't get it done. So it's like, yes, they're important. Listen, comics have had a big impact, especially with me and my father. Right? A big, big thing. So, yes, of course they're important. If I stopped doing comics, my father would be crushed. Right? If I stopped doing comics, I would be crazy.
Yes.
Right? So, yes, they do have importance. But the thing is, ultimately, the quality of that one book, it doesn't affect your whole life. It doesn't. It could. I mean, you could have one shot with a publisher, and if that book's really bad and then they cancel a book, then you don't have a big career. But if that book's
absolutely.
great, then,
In
then
its
boom,
specificity,
then, right,
that
so,
one issue.
So obviously,
that
there's
one
exceptions,
page.
right? You know, I mean, I'm not that, you know. So there's exceptions, right? But in general, how volume 2 most likely, or any comic book, isn't gonna. You can't treat it with that. If you treat it with that amount of reverence when you're doing the work, well, if this thing's the most important thing ever, oh, then you become paralyzed. Then you can't do it. Because then you can't even put it out. It's not even a question of getting it done. You could draw all the pages, but then you start going back, and you're like, this page isn't the greatest thing, and this book's the most important thing ever. I gotta redo that thing. That's what I'm saying. You can't, you know, it's
Well, don't let
it's
like the saying goes,
also,
don't let perfect become the enemy of the good.
explain.
You know, and so what I mean by that is, in your strive for perfection, you will often downplay, ignore, outright dismiss, or even completely demonize the good because you are so driven towards perfection. And what is perfection? The sad part is you'll never know. Because if you keep ignoring the good along the way, when it's good, if you don't have the wherewithal, the editing skill, the mindset, the taste level to go, no, that's good. This is good right now. I can move on. And if you just keep going, no, it's not perfect. It's not right. No matter who you show it to, no matter what anyone says, no matter how you feel, no matter how objective you try to be about it, it's not perfect. Then it will never exist. It will never be good, and therefore will never be perfect. So therefore you get into this paradox.
That's what I'm saying. So you have to get it
but
done.
That's
right?
And that's
the
thing.
If you're so precious with it, and you get in your head about, oh, it's the most important thing ever.
Yeah,
well, that's going to be very hard to get that done, isn't it? You know.
Exactly.
And then when you get it done, you know, imagine if it's not the most important thing ever. Imagine how crushing that would be.
So you're gonna spend 5 hours on that double page spread, right? You're gonna finish that up?
Nah. It's gotta be perfect, man.
See, look at that walking contradiction right here.
Yeah. Listen,
Noah, give me
to be the last thing.
Give me one thing here, completely outside of comics. One thing that you are, when you have the time and inclination, that you are interested in learning and pursuing. Something that's outside of comics, because you got to be a well-rounded individual. Music. Any instrument in particular? Any kind of musical styling in particular?
Guitar, or piano, and rock and roll.
Okay.
Not the heavy stuff. I don't like the heavy stuff, but like, and rock and roll. You know, that could be yacht rock. I consider that to be rock and roll. Okay, give me some Hall & Oates, some Chicago, right? It could also be some country stuff, or even, listen, I kind of think George Strait is almost kind of, like, when I say rock and roll, that's kind of what I think. Like, George Strait, I'd allow him in there. I use it as a broad term. Let's see. I mean, maybe maybe not rock and roll, maybe soft stuff, but I prefer the rock and roll part, because I like Dean Martin, but Dean Martin ain't rock and roll. But, hey, I like the way how he sings. I'd like to sing like him, right? So, I'll just go through some of the, like, an idea of what type of music. Okay, let's see. Dean Martin's in there, right? Frank Sinatra, same guy. Let's see. The Beatles, Billy Joel. I like James Taylor, right? I love the acoustic stuff, man. That stuff's good too. Folk, you know, Jim Croce. Love that stuff. Was listening to that earlier. For a period, I liked Oasis, although that's, eh. Then, what else? I like Hall & Oates. I like that. I don't know. I like the Eagles, right? I like that country kind of rock stuff, right? Give me some of that. I like the Marshall Tucker Band. They're great. You know, I like some of like that Jersey stuff from like the 70s, you know, and 80s. It's kind of that, you know, like that kind of, they had like the Motown sound with the rock, and it was really great.
Wait. What Jersey in the 80s had Motown sound?
Southside Johnny.
Okay. I'm thinking,
Southside Johnny and the
I think
Jukes.
I hear Jersey in the 80s and I'm thinking Bon Jovi.
Yeah. He's aight. He's aight. I used to like him a bit, but too heavy for me now. Dude, the heaviest song that
Bon Jovi's too heavy for you now.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much the heaviest song that I'll listen to was Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. What
Okay.
else? Let's see. Yeah, Marshall Tucker Band, you know, I like him. But Motown, I love Motown, okay? Four
Motown's
Tops,
great.
Temptations, Drifters, right? Give me some of that stuff. So, that's the type of music, you know? I like all that stuff.
All right.
So,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
Fantastic, Noah. Noah, thank you so much, man. This was a great and very interesting conversation tonight.
It was fun.
I soaked it all in like a sponge. And then I
Yeah.
squeezed the sponge a little bit, and hopefully you got some of the juices. That is the weirdest metaphor to give you tonight, but that's all I've got.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
Noah, seriously, man, I know you've got a lot going on, so I'm going to let you get back to that.
Thank you.
But thank you for being generous with your time tonight.
Oh,
And
man, this was fun.
I can't wait to see where you're at in 5 to 10 years. I can't wait to see you look back even at this interview in 5 to 10 years. Watch it in about that time. Watch it in March 29th, 2030. Watch this interview and see
I'll probably think that I'm an
if you
idiot.
still agree
We'll
with
see,
some of
we'll
what
see.
you said. I bet you will, and I bet some things you'll be like, wow, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
And what the hell did Pete mean with that stupid thing about the sponge and the juices? Like, that's
Yeah.
what's wrong with you, Pete? You know, might take you a little shorter to get to it than that. But I'd be shocked if you don't look back at it and have a couple things where you would add on it or change your answer, or you've looked back and go, I have accomplished that, I managed to do that, I learned that thing that I wanted to learn. You know, I've surpassed where it is. I got that 2-page spread done.
Yeah.
Please, by 2030, get
Oh my
that
gosh.
2-page spread done.
I know. You know, I gotta get that done. Especially now that I'm driving, right? I mean, I could be out there, boom, creamed, and then this thing never gets done. You know, so now I got some urgency. You know, I'm not safe in my room anymore. There's threats out there lurking. You know, any day I gotta get the. Imagine how funny that would be, right? Headline: Noah MACTUTUS dies in a head-on collision, and then the double-page spread never gets done.
Noah.
That'd be tragic. Oh yeah, I forget. It's late for you guys.
Don't say such things. You're gonna live forever, Noah. Keep it
Forever.
up. Forever. Keep it up.
We'll see. Nobody's lived for forever before. Maybe I can beat them.
See?
Maybe.
I'm planting the seed. The seed.
Yeah.
Look up how long the oldest person who ever
Watch
lived.
me be like 99
Something
years
like,
old, right?
you know,
I'm like
go
almost
for
having my
it.
final breath. I'm like, wait, there's somebody who's breathed for 1 second longer. I gotta hold on. I gotta be somebody out there.
Noah, thank you so much, man. This was great. I'm really glad to see how far you've come along since the last time I talked to you. Keep it up. Get that book done. SDA says, get Mavericks Volume 2 and the catch-up tier here. That campaign is still in demand. I've got the link to go subscribe to your YouTube, but you don't have too much on there right now.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Every now and then, you get a notification of a stream, right? And here's the thing. You never know what's going to happen on my streams, right? You know, so, and then I take them down. So you got to be there. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll say something incredibly insightful, and then you get that. Or maybe I say something very, very stupid, you know? But then you get a laugh. So, you know.
There you go. All right, Noah, thank you, man. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys too. Really appreciate you guys being here. Means a lot. You guys were hilarious tonight. A little
Yeah.
too funny
It was
tonight.
so bad. They kept making me laugh when you were
Good
like
grief.
being serious. I was like, oh no.
All right, everyone, we're gonna be saying goodbye at this point. Before I leave, I do want to give you guys a reminder. There's 2 days left. March 31st is the last day to get that Granite Beast figure. There's also a bunch of things that are closing out March 31st. I'm going to do a stream on the Alterna channel tomorrow to talk about that. There's advertising closing out. There's perks from campaigns that are closing out. So I'm going to have like a whole rundown of that tomorrow on the Alterna Comics channel at 9 o'clock Eastern. Probably take an hour or two to go over everything. But the 31st, all those things are coming down. What's coming down? Tomorrow I will tell you. So hope to see you guys there. Until then, Noah, thank you so much.
Thank
Guys
you for
in the
having me
chat,
on, man.
thank you. It was a pleasure, man. No problem whatsoever. We'll have to do this sometime soon. When you finish that page,
All right.
you let me know.
Yeah, sure.
But until then, everybody, I hope you all have a great night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. All the best.